So tell me, what's your most rewarding moment in the kitchen?
Well, I mean, it starts first with a passion. What are you passionate about? The funny thing is I'm essentially an overachiever. People that really know me know that I am like, where most people will do this much, I'll do that much, and that's just me. And so at the age of about 8, I had decided which colleges I would go to. I knew what kind of jobs I would have. I knew exactly how I would make the money, when I'd retire. This was never on my radar. Like,
I could see that.
ever. It was just never on the
When I
radar.
grow up, I want to wear a mask and cook
Yeah.
food I can't eat.
When I grow up, I want people to stare at me when I leave the house. All the time. Yeah. So, where does that sort of passion come from? Well, it comes from essentially wanting to help people. Not only am I an overachiever, but I'm the type of person that will help someone to a fault. And, that's really my own issue, I suppose. I should really work on that. If you know any good doctors, let me know. I could use a few. So, in that I want to help people, when I see that someone can't eat something, for me, knowing exactly how that feels, well, it's a pretty crummy feeling. And like with kid number 2, it's like, wait, he's never had such and such. I gotta make sure he has that. Everybody else had it. It was like brownies. He had never had brownies before. I had to make sure that he got to try brownies. And then it just kind of morphs because you always want to make sure that, the old saying, no child left behind. I feel the same way. It's like no one should have to feel left out because in having this disease, I will tell you, it is so isolating. You can't leave your house. You can't share a meal with people. And even if you could, either A, it'll cost you 10 times more than it should, or B, they won't even like the food because it's so bland or so foreign to them. So you're essentially alone all the time. And in our country, everything revolves around food. Birthday, hey, it's food time. Graduation, hey, let's eat. Hey, you got an A on your test. Great, let's celebrate and get some ice cream. Oh, but you can't come. And that's really what it's like. And so the passion came from watching people, even adults, but especially kids, who couldn't have something. And it's like, you know what? I need to fix that. That's wrong. That child needs to experience what everybody else experiences. It's only fair. Because, well, in addition to the fact that I help people, I have this strong sense of justice. And so when you do all of this over time, you do end up experiencing really rewarding moments because even though you can't eat the food yourself, you literally get to stare at people and you're like, okay, how is it? And you get to watch them eat
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And then, of course, I make people tell me everything. I'm like, okay, what's it feel like? What's it sound like? What's it smell like? And I make them get all really foodie with me. That way I can actually eat it for myself in my head. It's like, okay, that's what they're saying. It's like, is it more like a banana or more like a this? And it's like I know what to eat in my head. And so what becomes rewarding is number one, watching people eat something that they normally can't have. That's a huge deal for me because what that stems from, for me personally, is I don't know about you, but I hated as a child when someone told me I couldn't do something. For me, that made me a million times more determined, like, oh, you said I can't do it? Watch me. And so it's like, oh, you can't have ice cream? Watch me. And that's really that passion to give people what they can't have, but in a way that's safe for them. And so that in it of itself is a huge reward. And then, of course, like we were at the Maker Faire. So the Maker Faire was huge. We were really successful. And there were several parents that I got to meet that were, on the verge of tears because they'd come up, especially the nut-free kids. Those were the best ones because first they'd come up to, one of our workers that were with us and they'd say, I can't have this and this and this and this. And the person would say, okay, you can have it. And they go, oh, and you can't have nuts too. Oh, these have nuts in them. And then, their face would drop and it'd be like, oh. And then they were like, but if you go over to the chef, she can make you something. And they were like, really? And of course the little kids' eyes would light up. And so I had these little products that I would make just for the nut-free kids. I had a few different options for them. And their parents were just over the moon because it was like, my kid can't have gluten and dairy and nuts, and they can't eat anything here at the fair. And, they were just so overjoyed and so thankful that we were there to give their kid an experience. And that, for me, was a huge reward. That and meeting, I got to meet a really cool kid. His name was Reed, and he has a similar condition to mine. One of his conditions is one of my symptoms. For me, my condition is essentially a really great mimicker. Like it mimics cancer, it mimics lupus, it mimics this, it mimics a lot of major diseases. So it doesn't really have a name, it's just me. But his condition is one that I essentially have. And so when his mom heard that, she says, oh, he has, EOE. And I'm like, what? Really? Because me too. And he lights up because, like, how often do you have somebody that has that? Like, you really don't. It's a thing. And then, of course, she's just like, oh my goodness. And she's all happy. And, it was just really cool getting to meet people that can't have. And then you're there to give them something they can have. And I think that's really the most rewarding part. Kind of like how I'd want you to tell me if I look ridiculous.
Oh, you look great.
Okay, now that he's gone, we can tell jokes.
You look great.
If only he knew what he sounded like he said just a second ago, is you look like the elephant chef. Yeah, and I'm wearing gray. Not that helpful. Oh, bye.